But yesterday we were talking about it because you spoke up a boundary, you spoke up a thing, right? We were in the middle of a conversation and you said, hey, that doesn't feel good. I won't paraphrase. Well, I will actually paraphrase what you said because I don't honestly remember exactly what you said. But the idea is when something comes up and then you basically stand up for yourself and you say, hey, that didn't feel good. I don't think that's really what I did. This was my intention. This is how it felt for me. And I don't appreciate how you responded or reacted or whatever, right? And that idea of how uncomfortable it feels to stand up for yourself, but then the awkwardness after the fact where instead of like everything prior to our relationship, I shouldn't say everything, but a large chunk of our life has been spent with not advocating for ourselves and speaking our needs. And so then when one of us does it and the other one responds with like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't see it that way. I understand now what you're saying. And I was totally in the wrong, right? How awkward does that actually feel?
Right.
Like it's super awkward. It's hard to receive like an apology. It's hard to be like, hey, this doesn't feel good and I don't appreciate it. And instead of being like, well, sucks to be you, you should just stop being,
I'm sorry that you felt that way. I'm sorry that, I guess I'm so offensive. All the ways we're used to receiving it.
Yeah. Instead it was, oh, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry that that's what happened. I'm sorry that that's, and then we have an experience there and a conversation there. And then I can learn from it. And then you get the added benefit of feeling what it's like to actually advocate for yourself and speak up for yourself and have somebody respond in a good way.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
It feels really good. It's scary. And it's like, I definitely want to practice that. Like, just because I'm not used to it, and it may you're not sure where to put it. It's almost like, is this a trap? Is this a trap? Are you?
It always feels like I shouldn't say always, but it sparks that they're waiting to, use this against me, or I'm going to pay for this later. All those kind of feelings, right?
Yeah. All the ways that it used to be. And I'm not saying like in our relationship, I'm not saying but just like our past, what we learned about it. So all the ways that for me, right? For me, all the ways that it felt like if I spoke up for myself, I was,
Baby, you forgot to turn off your notifications on your phone.
I sure did. I sure did. I'm panicking now.
Go ahead. Turn them off.
La, 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 la.
You can take a second.
We're on camera one here.
You're good, babe.
Oh my goodness.
When it happened yesterday, I had awareness.
Silence.
I had awareness of how I have felt, what I presumed you were feeling in the moment, right? Just that uncomfortable feeling of like, somebody heard me and validated me and didn't shame me or make me feel bad. That doesn't feel normal.
Well, it's scary. There's that, but there's also the part of where then I interpret, like little me interprets that, oh, now I've made you feel bad. And not only do I not want to make you feel bad, right? There's the thing that I don't want to make you feel bad. I don't want to cause pain in you. But there's also, when you look at that, like from a deeper lens, like, like on a microscope when you can
zoom in.
Like I zoomed
10
in.
times magnify, 20 times, 100 times
clearly,
magnify.
I've had a lot of experience with microscopes. So
we're doing lots of work with microscopes.
Right, we are. I'm a microscope in. Anyways, so like first thing is like, oh, I made you feel bad. Or like, I don't want to make you feel bad. But then when you go deeper with that, it's like, oh, if I make you feel bad, if you feel bad, you're going to get angry and resentful and mean, and like not you. This is like the lessons that, this is my programming. And then if you get angry and resentful and mean, then you're going to become punishing and violent. And like, even though that's never you, it's like very clarifying. But it's like, and also like another layer deeper, if I've said something to upset you, if you have to feel any feelings based off you're not going to love me and you're going to leave. So it's all of these layers that go like choom, 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 deep to the core, which is, I guess, an abandonment wound I have on that. So I need to forego all of my needs to keep you happy so that I can receive love, because, that's the whole cycle of it, which means that practicing saying, hey, that doesn't feel good. Didn't like that.
Right. It's so scary.
It's like by saying that, I'm going to, like, you're going to leave. You're going to leave. And I know that that's not the case, right? I know that that's not the case. That's just a deep fear and saying the awkward thing. It's saying the thing that, oh, it kind of comes down to this. And the flip side, because there's always a flip side, is I'm really getting curious about my actions and my reactions, because I went from having no boundaries to having boundaries, which means I practiced being like over the top. So it's just a thing of going back and forth. So I'm still like, I don't want to make you feel bad when I'm in a reaction, when I'm in a trigger and I'm projecting. And so I'm still getting used to, like, was that a healthy boundary or was that a shitty thing to do right there? Was that a projection or was that a boundary? Because they both feel kind of scary.
Yeah.
They both feel painful. So trying to figure all of that out and like the milliseconds that come when you're like, I'm sorry, I can see how you feel that way. I don't want you to feel that way. I'm like, oh, everything right now, feel it.
Yeah, it's this weird, like, because I was relating a lot to it when we went through that little conversation, that little interaction, that little moment, and I picked up on the little subtlety of how you responded, because it's awkward. Like, and I don't mean that you're awkward. I mean, you are awkward
Totally
sometimes,
awkward.
right? But I could relate so much to it because you and I have been doing that type of communication for a really long time, right? For years, where we've been practicing this thing of like, hey, that doesn't feel good to me. I need to speak out against something that you're doing right now or something that you said that didn't feel good. And I have to communicate that. And it's really difficult. And then what happens afterwards is that awkward feeling, right?
Yeah.
And I could pick up that you were feeling that awkward feeling, or at least my perception of what you were feeling. And I also wanted to like highlight how powerful it was to recognize that what you're practicing is speaking up for yourself. What you're practicing is setting a boundary, communicating your needs, all of these things that we very much need practice at because of all the trauma in the childhood and all the different shit, right? Stuff that we talk about all the time. And it was just a moment where I was like so grateful that you and I've created this relationship where we get to practice something so powerful, something so healing, something so beneficial, because it literally feels like I couldn't clearly identify key moments where I could feel that, because the feeling for me is it's so uncomfortable. It's just this awkward, uncomfortable feeling of like, I don't know what to do next. It's like, I kind of don't know where to put my hands kind of feeling, right? It's like somebody saw me and didn't yell at me and didn't make me feel bad, didn't shame me, didn't shut me down, didn't flip it around on me. You know, they actually said, I'm sorry. I can see how that made you feel that way. And, you know, I feel bad for that. And I want to make sure that we don't do that again. It feels strange. And I'm really grateful that we're cultivating the relationship where we get to practice that.
Yeah.
Because that to me is a really powerful thing to practice. I want you to have as much practice as possible at being able to communicate, hey, this doesn't feel good. And we've done it a lot over the years, and we're getting to a point where, because it didn't always look like it looked yesterday, right?
Right. I had another awareness come in
Let's hear it.
to mind. Are you okay? Will you lose your train of thought?
No.
Because it just like it came through.
Thanks for
like,
checking though, because there's a good chance I will, but that's okay.
It was it's another form of apologizing.
It's another form of
apologizing. So
that's when you polish an apology.
right? That's actually like a good metaphor going into it, because there's the over apology too. That if you say, hey, that didn't feel good, you're like, oh, I'm a piece of shit. I'm the worst. Right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like going and like, usually I'm totally garbage.
Right.
And all
And
that.
now
And
I've got to make you feel better.
and now you've got to make it. And it's the over, like promising to, I'll never do that again. I'll never make that mistake. From here on out, I will be perfect and I'll be a wreck. And it's like everything that you're like, hey, excuse me, do you remember that like something like really didn't feel good here? Why am I taking care of you now?
Yeah.
Which would also not make somebody really want to apologize.
For sure. The awareness, let's see if I can bring it back because I totally forgot it.
Or wait, not make somebody want to apologize. It was not make somebody want to call somebody out on something. They would just deal with it because that.
Are you trying to help me remember what I was going to say?
No, I just said the wrong thing and I was correcting myself real fast. Now you go.
Okay. If you're listening to this podcast, good luck keeping track of what we're talking about.
The ADD is strong today.
I'm grateful that we have this practice. I'm grateful that, it didn't always look like this.
Yes.
Right? Very often, I mean, we could replay the scenario yesterday, and I wish I could really remember what you had, like what it was all centered on. It doesn't really. Do you remember?
I do.
Well, if you're comfortable sharing it.
It was something about the way the van was driving.
Oh yeah.
I was like, hey, I noticed that I noticed that I had to do something. And with the van, because of the temperature, I had to
I think this is a great story.
Do you?
Yeah,
Okay.
because we have this minivan that we got, and we've had it for over 10 years. And I brought the minivan home after we got together. So we get together, we get married. We weren't married yet, right?
No.
We just moved in together, and we blended all of our kids together
and we had
under
to take
one roof.
2 vehicles everywhere.
Yeah, so like anytime we were
fit.
going anywhere as a family, we had 2 vehicles, and it just sucked. And so we're like, we need something bigger. And so I went and traded in the vehicle that I had and brought home a sweet 2014 red minivan.
Right.
I think it was a 2013.
I think it was too.
It doesn't matter what year she is. She's been a great minivan, and she's got over 255,000 miles on her. She's done so many wonderful trips. We've had like countless family vacations. She got us here to Tennessee. Like, it's an amazing vehicle. And she's held together with some duct tape. She's got some, there's got, I don't mean to call you out, but it is funny. Like, she's got some damage on her backside from where Steph ran into the garage.
I was like, how are you calling me out? What are you saying? Oh, then that's right. Yeah, I did. That was a funny time too. When I did that, and we're just like, and Asher was in the car with me.
Was he?
And he was just sitting there, just silent. Like, he didn't make a sound. And I looked at him and I'm like, I can't talk right now, okay? And he's like, okay. And jumped out of the and left. I'm like, I can't talk right now.
But it's been a really good minivan for us. And I've been the one that has been responsible for doing all of the, work on it. And over the years, I've done a lot of work on it. Some of it we've obviously had to, what's the word I was looking for?
Source out?
Yeah. We've had to source out some of the help.
Hire a mechanic?
Yeah.
Rarely, because you're really good at it.
No, not everything I can find a good YouTube video on in order to how to do it. But we've kept this van alive for 10 plus years and hundreds of thousands of miles. And it drives great still, but not super great. And you have to be kind of cognitive of how it shifts gears and its transmission and all these other kind of things, because it's just an old van.
Mm-hmm.
And you were driving, doing about, what did you say? You were doing like 70 or something like that?
Yes.
And you were doing 70 and you were slowing down because it was a really hot day. And
yeah, I was like, oh, it's 93. I realized that I should probably be going about 65 instead of 70.
Right.
Yeah.
And I am so scared because this van is, if she's had 9 lives, she's on her 9th, right?
Right.
She's hanging in by a thread.
I think she's on a good 6.
I think so. She's
Yeah.
got some more legs under her. But I'm so paranoid that it's going to crap out and break. And so I'm like, be careful, be careful, be careful, be careful. Always paranoid about the van. And you do a beautiful job of driving it, by the way. And I told you that yesterday. And it's the truth, right? You're not a bad driver and you don't drive the van poorly in any way. But when I'm anxious and when I'm nervous, it causes me anxiety.
I get that.
And so I responded with criticism. How did I respond? How would you describe that I responded in the moment?
It was a little extra critical. You're like, yeah, she's old. She can't do it. When it's hot, you've got to really like take it. You started like reiterating. Like you were like
her
you had
top
found
speed is only
incorrect.
ever 65.
Right. And I was like, bullshit.
"Motherfucker, I've been in the van with you when you're going. We took this thing up to Knoxville yesterday and you were doing 75. I'm like, well, wait a minute. In some circumstances.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what the argument, it wasn't even an argument. That's what triggered it all. And instead of like, go ahead.
Well, what happened, I thought it was just sitting because I kind of like snapped at you a little bit because I'm like, that's bullshit. I think I was like, okay, Mr. Hippocrates.
Yeah.
I had little snarky things and it was like, oh, and then realized I'm like, what was actually happening for me and I spoke to it was that I knew you had nerves about it. I know that you are like really diligent on taking care of the van, and you have little techniques that you drive with it, and you've communicated it. So when I caught it and I saw that, I spoke it to you, and my intention was a reassurance for you. And also, like, I wanted you to see that I was doing a good job. I wanted you to like be proud of me, which is kind of silly because I'm a grown ass woman. I'm like, look, I'm doing it right. Do you see that? And so I had that energy. I didn't know I was looking for that until you responded. And then I was like, wait a minute. I was doing a good job, and I wanted you to see that, not tell me where I was doing it wrong. Like, come on, buddy. And
well, that's
so
the whole thing that we're talking about, right? That dynamic of like, wait a minute, I wasn't doing anything wrong in this moment. In fact, I was trying to do the healthier thing that we're always talking about, where we're trying to speak up for ourselves and advocate in a positive, healthy way rather than all of these other toxic things that we've done. So in the past, we would have had that scenario play out where we probably would have just made fun of each other.
That would have been one way.
Right. Or I definitely would have flipped it all around and made it, you know, an issue like your fault, something that you did, or teased you for the way that you responded, all of those kind of things. We've spent years behaving that way.
Yeah. We perfected the passive aggressive communication style.
Yes. On both ends.
Right. I said we've. I didn't say you've or me've. I said we've.
Your words today, baby. I love it. So it was a beautiful moment where we got to practice this opportunity to healthily support each other in the advocating for ourselves kind of department. And I think that was a really cool experience.
Yeah.
And I think it's important. I wanted to talk about it because I don't think that happens a lot. I think that the other way of navigating it, I think, is what the majority of people probably are doing and staying stuck in, and, you know, repeating those patterns and those cycles. And so I really wanted to speak to it because it was awareness for me in the moment too, where it was like, oh, we do this a lot in a healthy way. Right. And this is actually what it's doing. It's helping us recognize this younger part of us that's learning how to speak up and say, hey, this doesn't feel good.
Right.
So it's cool.
It was way cool. And then when you had like recognized it and pointed that out, and you're like, hey, what did that feel like for you? Mm-hmm. This is kind of what I'm seeing. And it was like, you saw the deeper level that I wasn't really tapped into or feeling. So it was an even like deeper level of being seen. And it was like,
even more.
Okay. That's accurate. I have to feel that, and balancing between. It's scary to be seen when there's so much practice and need to be unseen. And then when you're trying to be seen, and then you are seen, and you're seen lovingly and it's safe, you're like, I'm really grateful that we get to practice this now. And I'm really grateful that we have that space of where it's okay that we both are practicing it, and we both don't have, nobody's up on their high horse of like
doing it better than the other.
Yeah, doing it better than the other. I mean, like, why are you the way you are? Well, sit down. I'll tell you.
I think about how defensive I used to be, and what this takes, right? What I've recognized over the years is not only like being accountable for my actions, but being willing to apologize when I make a mistake. And I think we've talked about this before, but that was never a safe thing. You know, I never saw people apologize for messing up and making mistakes. It wasn't something that I had a lot of experience doing when I was a kid. If I made a mistake, the last thing I was going to do is take accountability for it, because it just wasn't safe to do so, you know. And there's a little kid brain in there that's like, oh, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to get grounded. I'm going to get sent to my room or something like that. But the deeper layers of that is abandonment. I'm going to lose the love of my caregivers, my mom, my dad, my brothers, you know. And that, I think, is what drove a lot of my subconscious, that was the subconscious program that drove a lot of these outwardly conscious actions of like defensiveness and turning it around on you and blaming you for everything and not taking responsibility and not being accountable. And I mean, my classic one is always, sorry that I made you feel that way. Sorry that what I did, which I didn't do anything wrong, caused you to feel a certain way. Like, that's up to you to control your actions and your feelings, right? That's not on me. And that's just like classic shitty asshole response. So accountability is hard.
Accountability is hard.
Because oftentimes it doesn't feel safe. And it truthfully wasn't for the majority of our lives.
It truthfully wasn't.
Right?
Yeah.
Is there any other part of it that you want to highlight, talk about, mention?
Well, I can speak to like apologizing and accountability from my part and how it kind of like fed the dynamic. Is mine was being accountable for other people's actions and choices, and like it was like my job to jump in and apologize and be responsible for somebody else's actions and them never have to be accountable for their own actions. But I was afraid like to be accountable myself, was like, I have to make it better for you. But if I've done something wrong, then it's really dangerous because like I have to get it. Like I'm already doing enough things wrong. When you make a mistake, somehow it's and I'm talking about, my programming. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about what it was like growing up and relationships that I was creating after that. So it was like, if you did something wrong, it's my fault. And I'm like, you might get really, really mad. It might be scary. And if I did something wrong, I'm fucked. So I will take accountability for you, but not for myself. And that's what the dynamic that I brought in at the beginning. I would take accountability for you, but not for me. And so that worked with yours of, it just went in a cycle of like, I came into it like, because
it's back to the narcissist, co-narcissist.
Right?
It's back to the codependency. It's back to all of those things that we learned in childhood. And then they just magically happen in our relationship.
It makes me so mad too to hear that. Like it's a fact, but there's a part that's like, God damn it. Like, this wasn't my fault. Like, this was something that I was programmed. Like it was either being like hurt physically or figuring it out. And then to see like that it came, and here I am as this adult practicing these things. It's frustrating. And I think honestly being mad about it is a healthy choice for a minute, right? Because it is frustrating, and allowing that anger out is healthy. It's needed. And so much of it, you weren't allowed to be angry.
Yeah.
Because you would either make the other person mad or make them be, if you had a reaction. So there's so much of it.
Let's talk about anger.
You want to talk about anger?
Yeah.
We were meant to be. We were meant to be.